Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman. Right. Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global podcast for what's going on around the world of motorsport, which was not a lot this weekend, but all fairly frank end-of-term stuff. There was the Formula 1 and Formula 2 at Abu Dhabi. There was the MotoGP at Valencia. There was the Supercars title decided then in Adelaide. And apparently there was some sort of racing, endurance racing in Barbados, which perhaps, you can fill us in on later in the show. But did you get to see the Grand Prix in the last one of the year?
We saw the extended highlights. We didn't watch the whole thing, but and I read about it. It just looked like a bit of a snooze fest. What was it like, Tiff?
What it was. I mean, the most interesting stuff, really, that I really got excited was the 10 rookies in FP1. This was the best part of the whole weekend. So you know what we're like. We always love seeing these youngsters trying to get their chance to move into Formula 1, which is so rare. And we had 3 British drivers out of those 10. So we got this rich seam of British talent coming up through the ranks. Because Zach O'Sullivan in the Williams and Jake Dixon in the Red Bull joined Ollie Behrman, who's having second go in the Haas team. So it's great to see them all out there having a go, none making mistakes or crashing the cars. But the star was really Brazil's Felipe Drugovich, this Formula 2 champion from 2 years ago now, just hasn't got a drive, can't get in, reserve driver at Aston Martin. So he got his chance. And it was 0.271 seconds faster than Lance Stroll. So I don't think that would have gone well done with Stroll. And obviously, you never know what runs they're doing or what tires they're all on and fuel levels. But Drugovich certainly got the head. He was second fastest overall, only beaten by George Russell. So, but it must be so frustrating, mustn't it, when they do these tests and they show that they can drive the car and then nothing happens.
But look at how many people are in Brazil. Brazil is just full of motorsport enthusiasts. To get somebody like him into F1, get Bottas out, get Ricciardo out, get them out, get some new.
You would have thought,
like
because there's a certain amount of favoritism to keep to have certain countries in. Like Zhou's probably mainly in because he's Chinese, but there should always be a Brazilian in Grand Prix racing because it's since Senna and Fittipaldi, and it's got such a heritage of the Grand Prix. There's one of the best Grand Prix around, but. So yes, the second most impressive was this Robert Schwartzman. He was Russian. He was actually born in Israel, so he's now become an Israeli because obviously the problems. I mean, 2 years ago when I think he came second in Formula 2, he should have been in the Haas. He should have been in the Haas. We said this on this very podcast. Instead of Hulkenberg or Magnussen having yet another year of back of the field, he was only how far behind was he? He was 0.027 seconds slower than Carlos Sainz, so really impressive. He's done these tests before, Schwartzman. Hopefully he'll get into World Endurance Championship. Ollie Behrman was the third best again. He was only 0.107 seconds slower than K-Mag, and an amazing job with Haas. The fourth nearest to their leader was Mick Doohan, who's Alpine's man. Pastor O'Ward came over from IndyCar to do the McLaren. He was sort of close-ish, but not enough. Teo Pourchaire got the Alpha, the Formula 2 champion. Zach O'Sullivan was about 0.7 slower than Logan Sargent, so not the best. He won't be happy with that, but I'm sure he's delighted to have driven. You don't know what program he had. Then Frederick Vesti got a Mercedes run. He's actually come up now as a possible Williams driver, Vesti, because he's Mercedes backed. So Logan's tenure in that Williams seat still seems a bit fragile. He was eighth best, and then. There were 2 Red Bulls. The Red Bull boys didn't have a star to go up against because they put both of them in. Jake Dennis, of course, our Formula E champion, joined in, and Isaac Hadjar, the French kid. Dennis was quicker than Hadjar by a tenth or 2. So 10 of them all had a go, didn't make mistakes, didn't look silly. But
that's the thing. How hard do you push, and how hard do you want to make a bit of a statement? But the last thing you want to do. So you're getting in a strange car. They all know the circuit, but you're getting in a strange car. And you want to make a statement, but you don't want to overcook it. You don't want to be that person.
Imagine being in Max's car. Isaac Hadjar was in Max's car. Because Jake Dennis has done he's been a Red Bull simulator driver for years. So a lot of them are being rewarded for being simulator drivers, which is about the nearest they'll ever get to being a Grand Prix driver. But, I think Ollie Behrman's got a good chance of getting through. Zach O'Sullivan, he came second in Formula 3, he's moving up to Formula 2. I think Zach could still get through. But then that would make it about 5 British drivers. There'd probably be a complaint, and then we'd have to have one less because there's too many Brits in.
Well, let's get another team. Another 2 cars.
Oh, you can't another team. Don't you start? They'll have to give away some of their money, wouldn't they?
Oh, but exactly. But another team, another two drivers, 2 cars, 2 drivers. Get rid of some of the old hat, and I
know
that's your solution.
We've been campaigning. We've been saying it for years, and so have other people. But it's all too vested interested. And qualifying itself, we had. And they've got to sort whatever they do over the winter, regulation-wise. They've got to come up with some system for qualifying, because now they were creeping out through that tunnel, the tunnel pit lane exit. They're all coming out at 5 miles an hour and trying to go 3 miles an hour to get a bigger gap. And I think in one practice session, Max just overtook them all barging through. They had a drivers' meeting the night before quali and all agreed what all let each other. And of course, when it came to actual qualifying, they just did no bugger. They all just went for their own best positions and moved. It just looked stupid. I had to sort it out. The stories of Q1 was poor old Logan Sargent doing 2 track limits. Actually, turn 1, which has got quite a vicious curb. You almost feel it doesn't need a track limit penalty, because the curb looks to unsettle the car quite badly and perhaps, penalise the car enough. But anyway, so he had all his time to take.
You have a track limits to track limits. Track limits to track limits. You can't start saying, oh, we shouldn't have track limits because the car's unsettled anyway. Track limits are track limits.
Well, no, but if you have curbs that take a tenth or 2 off you, if you go over them, then
you still need track limits.
Well, that's it. No, you don't. You don't need a rule.
Of course you do. Track limits are track limits. There's a line, and that line is definitive. So that's your track limits, there's a curb there.
That's the new way at the moment, but everybody doesn't like it, because, these tracks where there's too many track limit infringements because you've got over a white line. We need rough curbs or gravel or slippery surfaces. So if you do run wide of the track, you're slowed by the features of the circuit.
We will come on to Bushy Park in Barbados later with Caterhams, but you certainly wouldn't want to cut any apexes, because we were blessed with sausage curbs. So anyway, we'll come on to that shortly.
Exactly, vicious curbs, but that damages cars, so then it's a vicious circle. The other big story of Q1 was, of course, Carlos Sainz going out. He was only 0.3 slower than Leclerc, who was up in about the top 10. But it wasn't. He was out, complained of traffic. And Davidson looked at the traffic he had, and there wasn't really traffic. I don't think there was much traffic. Just had a bad lap. It was so close. It's about 0.2 from pole down to the bottom. Q2, Lewis, my car's wrong, mate. Look, mate, the car's wrong. It's not fast. 11th on the trot.
Yeah.
Whereas George in the end qualified 4th, in the other.
He's found a resurgence. He's really on fire at the moment. At the end of the season, George. He's overtaken Lewis. Yeah.
It was funny. We had that period, didn't we, in mid-season when Lewis really seemed to be coming back and sorting out the boy and being the dominant Mercedes driver. And now it's switched back again, and George is the one up there. So whether Lewis has got a bit of carbon fibre in his chassis, who knows? So Q3, it's another Max and Charles front row for the race, which all look quite exciting. McLaren 3rd and 5th, George 4th. Yuki Tsunoda was the highlight of qualifying 6th. And that was really Sergio got pinned for track limits again. Sergio got put back to 9th, having another bad end of season race. And that was where the excitement seemed to end, really. There was a bit of race. There was quite a few side-by-sides going on in the midfield battles. I was quite interested in turn 1, actually. I'd like to know, because Leclerc on the inside got level with Max on the outside.
Yeah.
But sort of backed out.
Max
Now, if that had been switched round, I reckon Max would have gone through. There is that difference. Max has that, amazing determination.
No, he's got the killer instinct, and he will put his car on the line every single time. He doesn't care. And fair play to him in a way, because he's on this roll and setting records all over the place, but he's still prepared to put his car on the line. So you got to respect him for that. Such a winning determination.
Yeah. I was going, go on, Charles, get stacking, go on, get off the brakes, stay level, stay level.
But like Sergio did
Max ran wide.
Yeah, but like Sergio did later with Lando, and kept him out there, pushed him out there, because of course he got a reprimand for calling the stewards a joke. So he got reprimanded afterwards. But
I agree with Checo on that one. For once, I agree that Perez he shouldn't have had the 5 seconds.
Well, I said to the guy,
I mean, when you're trying to get a,
straight away Lando's fault. But then you see the other angle, and Checo doesn't turn. He just he pushes him out there. It's a Red Bull tactic.
But he's trying to turning a 1-ton truck. It's the trouble. They're not nimble though. If you go in about 5 miles an hour too fast, you're going to understeer. The flipping
but he's not turning the wheel. His hands are like that. He's not turning. He knew what he was doing. But
Lando was saying I was letting him by. Lando was saying I was letting him past. So I don't know quite. No, anyway, we ended up with 1.5 hours of Max pulling away, Leclerc second. Then we had this pantomime towards the end. So you've done an 1.5 Grand Prix, not that hot. And you start chatting, you're in second place in your Ferrari, and you're thinking about championship points, because apparently whoever came second. And I'm not interested in these constructors. I mean, all the commentators make it exciting. I couldn't give a doodle who came second or third in the constructors championship. But so Leclerc now has a chat on the radio. I mean, he's driving around in 4G on his neck muscles, 4G braking. I've been thinking about this. If I drop back and let Perez by, and because he has 5 seconds penalty, and then we can push Russell back, so then Ferrari will come second and Mercedes third. I mean, the fact that they're able to think about all of this, I'd be so knackered at the end. I'd be hanging on the steering wheel.
See, I disagree.
The finish line.
I disagree. You are the master of being able to drive a car and talk and do stuff at the same time. So I think it's just second nature. You do it all the time. You're power sliding and you're talking.
Yeah, but that's more reacting to what's going on, not thinking some great master plan of allowing Perez up to second. What do the spectators think? Half spectators now at these events, they're not knowledgeable spectators. I doubt the commentary's that good in the grandstands. What language are they shouting in the grandstands? And all of a sudden, Perez goes past, Leclerc for second place. I mean, were they getting excited in the grandstand? Did they think that was did they know about the 5-second penalty? They probably didn't. That's the trouble with time penalties, that what you're watching from your grandstand isn't what's actually happening in the race, unless you're knowledgeable or you've got a revenue telling that Perez got 5 seconds. I tell you what, penalty-wise, so I think Perez, that was just a race against him. I don't think they had to give that 5-second penalty personally. But Alonso brake checking Lewis, now to my mind, that was really dangerous. And yet, Alonso is, in the post-interview, has done, I'm clever, I've been around for so long, I know these little tricks. But it was dangerous. It was on the racing line and to suddenly back off. Did you see that one?
I did. I saw it. And as you said, he came in the interview afterwards. He said, Lewis understands F1 really well and has a lot of experience, but I have more.
Cocky, typical Alonso, cocky, I'm so clever. But it was a dangerous move. Yeah. And it shouldn't have happened, I don't think.
Mark, who we're with here, who I'm sharing rooms and stuff with, from Padlop, he got brake checked exactly the same, and it ruined his race. So, but we'll come on to that. You just can't do it in motorsport. It's not fair.
I don't think so. What else went on? George got third. So Mercedes got £7 million apparently, or dollars. That was the difference between second or third. And Yuki Tsunoda, they had a brilliant race. Yuki led for a long time on a sort of alternate strategy. And but he only finished 7th, I think it was, and so he didn't overtake Williams. So that was another about £7 million. Williams got more than Alfa. That's the trouble, you see. That's why they keep these old drivers in, because they're so worried about not getting points. Like Valtteri Bottas has been picking up so many points, hasn't he? Hasn't he, Alfa Romeo? He's been so good for you.
But
useless.
I'll tell you now, as a very bad businessman, I'm telling you now, you get Djokovic in that car and Bottas out, he will pull in much more sponsorship. So if they lose 2 or 3 million in winnings, he will pull in far more than that, because he's got the whole of Brazil behind him, and South America, arguably.
And he's had big backers to get him in Formula 2. So I don't know. Because there wasn't much fuss made. That was the last Alfa Romeo race as well, of course. They're not Alphas next year. Yeah, that wasn't mentioned hardly at all. So it's a quiet Alfa Romeo slowly sliding out. They finished down the back of the race anyway. They're disappearing. I don't know whether they're going to be cool next year. We don't know. We're waiting for a race somewhere, some stupid name, but we're waiting to see. And that was
in terms of overall wins, Max, incredibly, 54 race wins out of nowhere because of this record-breaking season. Schumacher still 91 of, and Lewis on 103. So if Max has another season like that, he's going to virtually overtake Schumacher in one more season, which is just nuts how many races he wins. I hope it's more competitive next year.
Well, I think they're closing up. I mean, McLaren were closing up. Lando again sort of felt he cocked up qualifying because Piastri was third and Lando was. But Lando again in the race, he's still got that extra, nursing those tyres, which everyone was moaning about again, overheating, backing off, and you've got to be careful of turn 11, got to be careful of turn 3. You're told over the radio where you're overheating your tyres, but he seems to get the best of Piastri in most races. So I don't know. It was just a lot. The track just seems dull for some, despite all the dramatic scenery around it. Having 2 stops or 3 stops, you're looking at the track and you don't know. Oh, hold on a minute. Now he hasn't stopped twice yet, has he? And he's on which tyre? And that's degrading. And what tyres has he got to use when he? Oh.
Yeah, but that's not the track. That's a strategy. That's something to keep up with the whole time. But I agree. The track looks spectacular, but it doesn't really deliver much.
I know. Something about it, I don't know why, because it's not got those natural edges to it. I think that's the great thing about a bit of grass and a bit of curbing and a bit of bumpy curbing. You know where you're at Spa or somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, so I mean there were quite exciting bits. There were some overtaking manoeuvres going on with DRS, but overall, everybody seemed to end the Grand Prix with a bit of a Formula 2. We'd completely forgotten. I think they waited 3 months or something now for Théo Pourchaire to win the championship.
Ridiculous.
It was pretty much a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
Frederick Vesti could have got it under. I couldn't be bothered to work out all the points. Vesti did a good job. He managed to win the sprint race, and then he was battling with Pourchaire in the main race. But Pourchaire knew he only had to finish 6th or something, even if Vesti won it. So it was good stuff. Who won the sprint? Yes, Vesti won the sprint race. And Vesti, as I said. Not Vesti. Vesti the one that's thinking of taking. Yes, Vesti the one that's thinking of taking maybe the Williams seat. So it was a good weekend for him to look good. Mick Doohan dominated the main race, pole position, and his BWT teammate was second. So they had a good car.
He
that
found
weekend.
some real form, didn't he? Come the end of the season, the last sort of 5 races or so.
Hasn't he won 3 on the trot or something? He's been dominant. So, and he looked good in the Alpine, but where does he go next? He does Formula 2 again for the 3rd year. I don't know. They're all queuing up. This is the whole problem. They're all queuing up.
Zane Mahoney, he's the local lad from Barbados. Sorry, Tiff. He's a local lad from Barbados. Oh, yeah. He didn't have the best of weekends, but
well, no, he was having a great battle with it. There was a dirty battle going on. They got quite a bit of screen time. Him and they were banging wheels and weaving the Japanese boy. So there was a lot of he got plenty of airtime. Bushy Park on the side of the car. So
exactly.
He was in the frame quite a lot.
Well, it's family-owned Bushy Park.
Yeah. So Ollie Behrman about 17th on the grid, but I mean they're all doing their Formula 1. I think there's a lot of feeling. Half of the field at the end of the year, sort of nothing, win or lose. They don't really bother that much. And Ollie was 17th on the grid, got up to 9th, and then the gearbox broke. So that was the end of Ollie's year. Then MotoGP, we moved to Spain, and another disappointing circuit. I mean, the funny thing is, circuits, they pay, I think, I'm pretty sure, to have the last round or the first round, which, what a surprise, we now open and close in the Middle East. And so the circuits are buying these better races, and the public and the motorsport suffers. And nobody likes Valencia. The MotoGP, it's a processional go-kart track. Fabulous crowd there, but not. I wouldn't have thought it's a big crowd. It's not much big capacity, but it just goes in and out in non-stop corners, lots of runoff. It's one of those tracks in the middle of a lap. If you turned your head away from the telly and come back, you don't know where you are on the circuit, unless the commentator's saying turn 6 or 7 or 8. You could be at turn 1 or 17, as far as I'm concerned. MotoGP, they all went there again. It was a bit of a, we all knew Pecco Bagnaia was going to get enough points to win it. But they hyped up the fact that the Premac boy, Jorge Martin, could catch him up. And Martin won the sprint race. It was a good sprint race. Plenty of battling. Marc Marquez on his last outing for Honda. Not a fuss about that, quite rightly so. He got third, got a podium in a sprint race. So that was all good stuff. Brad Binder, another battling sprint rider, was second with KTM. It was an entertaining sprint race. I mean, but entertaining only because they're all nose to tail. Follow my leader. So it looks entertaining, but very few overtaking manoeuvres going on. And half of them they tried ended up in calamity and clobbering someone and knocking people off into the gravel traps. But in the main race, Bagnaia led from the start, and Jorge Martin caught up to second. Went for a manoeuvre at the end of the main straight and outbraked himself, got a bit of slipstream and misjudged his speed and went wide out. So put him back down to about 9th place. So that pretty much ended any chance of him catching Bagnaia in the points. He then took out Marc Marquez, trying to angrily battle his way back to the front, which sent Marc Marquez into yet another high-sider, which he was lucky to escape without breaking his ankles where he landed. So, and then we had this fabulous run at the end. Bagnaia was out front, wanting to win the race to end the year. Who was it beside? It was the French boy, Johan Zarco, who's Pramac second driver, so Martin's teammate. He was on Bagnaia's tail, but coming back through the field yet again was everyone's new favourite, Giantonio. Got the name right this week. Got the name right. See, Digi for short. And Digi caught the two up front. And then Digi got into second, and we had 3 bikes then going for the lead on the last lap. And Digi tried up the inside on the last corner, but couldn't quite make it. And really exciting end to the Grand Prix season. Although sadly, Digi got
a second championship for Bagnaia.
Yeah, second on the trot. Bagnaia keeps his number 1. But it was good news all round for Digi. I mean, he got binned 3 seconds for tyre pressures. They have this, you have to keep a minimum tyre pressure for a certain percentage of the race when he went too long on a motor, whatever it is. I don't know how they work that rule. So he actually got dropped to 4th. So Brad Binder got 3rd in the end, Zarco 2nd.
It's
everyone
just
happy.
nuts the data they get from cars and bikes when they're driving around. Tyre pressures and all sorts.
I know how they check that. During the race, they've got to have all sensors and getting details. It's amazing, these sensors. But there was good news for Digi because he's staying in MotoGP. 6 months ago, he was out. He was useless. He was finishing nowhere. And he suddenly had this amazing run of form with the Gresini Ducati, which, of course, Marquez is taking his ride next year. And there was this VR46 team, Rossi's team. So they're losing one of their riders next year. Martin's going off to Honda. So it was going to be the Moto2 superstar, this Fermin Aldeguer, was going to go to VR46. But all of a sudden, the pressure, I think, with Ducati is saying, well, Fermin, he can have another year. He's only 18 years old. He can stay down in Moto2. And Digi has now got the VR46 ride for next year. So a happy end of the year for the MotoGP paddock. Aldeguer duly won, I think it's 3 on the trot now, just walked away with the Moto2 race. I think he's got a different chassis to it. They've all got the same Triumph engine, but there's 2 or 3 different chassis choices. And I think they've got a chassis that not many people have, but so he seems to have got that chassis working and going well. And by winning again, he took 3rd place in the points off of Jake Dixon. Jake finished 6th. So great season for Jake, but a bit disappointed, dropped to 4th. Sam Lowe's finished 7th in his last ever Moto2 race. Maybe he's out of the Moto GP scene next year. I think he's going Superbikes. I'm not sure where he's going. So Sam's had an amazing career. It's been, he did MotoGP for a couple of years. He's been up and down. He's such a character. He's had so many crashes and shunts. Everything. He's on the limit all the time. So it was sad to say goodbye to Sam. And Moto 3, everybody wanted only one person to win, which is Ayumu Sasaki, who was so badly treated by the Leopard pair of Honda children who finished the title off. And he hasn't won. Sasaki's had about 7 second places this year, but he won. Great race, fantastic close race from David Alonso, the Colombian kid that's going to be doing Moto 3 next year. Must start the season as favourite. Although Sasaki's teammate Colin Vager, this Dutch boy, out of the blue, amazing rookie season. He led most of the way, then he outbraked himself, dropped back to 5th, and got back to finish 4th. So good racing. Moto 3 boys, always good, but stupid circuit. MotoGP, move it somewhere more spectacular. Not a go-kart track in Valencia. Formula One, move your circuit.
So where we go next?
Vegas
have you got anything else?
Well, let me go down.
Should we talk about the highlights?
Aussie Supercars. Aussie Supercars, another sort of end of season slight damp squib, trying to hype up that Shane van Gisbergen could take the last championship as he leaves Supercars to go to NASCAR. But the points gap was so big, it was never really going to happen. And when Shane had a crash in the first race and a mechanical retirement in the second, so he didn't even finish either of his last 2 supercar races. A bit of a shame. And so it was Brody Kostecki took the title. He led going in there. He was going to win it anyway. But the Ford boys had another good weekend. They had that balance of power change a couple of races ago. They finished 1st to 4th in the first race. Cam Waters won it. And the second race was won by a new Kiwi superstar, because Van Gisbergen's a New Zealander. So as one New Zealander disappears, this new kid, Matt Payne, won for Ford in race 2. His first ever win. Was he 21 years old? It was a shame that down under, the young talent tends to go to supercars because it's where you earn a professional living. But in 2021, he won the Toyota single-seater series, where a lot of Europeans often go down. He won 5 out of the 9 races as a 19-year-old. So obviously quite a talent. So Matt Payne is looking to be the next Shane van Gisbergen, while Shane van Gisbergen waves goodbye and heads to NASCAR. So great stuff. That was really the world gone around.
No, it was not, Tiff. We got the highlight coming up any moment now, but I got
so whilst the rest of the world was
speaking of race wins, there was a season finale in Barbados. But speaking of wins, Felipe Massa had his first race win in 15 years. He won the Stock Car Pro Series at Cascavel. So how about that? Oh. He's very excited about that. and Vector Sport, Ryan Cullen, one of our mates, Vector Sport are dropping out of WEC. I think it's quite well known because they're going to effectively white label the Azotto, the new Italian
Azotto Francini, the LMP. Callum, is it going in there?
So I don't know whether Ryan's going to be in the car because he was Vector Sport, but we'll wait and see whether Ryan gets a drive there. Hopefully so, because he's loving life in WEC, as I expect he would, traveling around the world driving very nice cars. But Bushy Park, Barbados is where all the action really was. Forget Abu Dhabi and all these other places, but it really was spectacular. So the season's finished. This wasn't for the championship. The season's finished. Yeah. This is just a bit of a jolly. So I think about 25 Caterhams came. So most people had 2 drivers because it was hot, 30 degrees every day.
All one class?
No, 3 different classes. 3 different classes, 2 70s, 3 10s and 4 20s. And the track was brilliant. It was quite a technical track, not much runoff. It was sort of up and back. But it was, I think almost everybody enjoyed the track. As I said, the curbs were massive, big sausage curbs, but it stopped people cutting the corners. You couldn't cut the corners. And there was people, but I think almost everybody enjoyed
curb, it could break your back or it could break your chassis. And this is
I get that, and I know, of course, Abby Eaton, can't stand sausage curbs, but I think when they're on the inside, it's not so bad. It's when they're on the outside. And
the things with Abby's, it was a curb at 90 degrees to the direction of travel. I mean, that was this is the trouble. I think you have an accent and everyone's sympathising with that, but it's not all curbs. That was a particularly badly designed. Like a curb which you go over at a sort of angle, that slows you isn't the problem so much, you know. But that was a stupid one that did her injury. So you got to be careful to write off all curbing.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I didn't get that much time. I was partnering with Harvey Lawrence, and he's about 10 stone wet through. So he's got 20 kilograms of lead in his car. But he was flying. He was really on it. He had a few car problems the first day, but he was flying. Then we did the endurance race in the evening. All great fun. Under the floodlights, Bushy Park. Fantastic. Robin Bradford, who you know from the old Brands Hatch days and from following motorsport, he was the commentator and he was brilliant. His knowledge and enthusiasm was superb. Lovely English voice. Yeah,
always a tone of sarcasm in a lot of his stuff, a lot of humour as well. He tends to take the mickey, Robin does. He was a British journalist with motorsport throughout the 70s, 80s. And he moved to Barbados about 20 years ago, I think, and has been there ever since.
Yeah, exactly. So
did you win?
Well, we didn't win. Harvey got a podium in one of the sprints, which is great. But then the next day, the Sunday, getting ready, feeling good, because you can only measure yourself on your teammate. And my teammate smoked me in day one. But day two, I thought, I'm going to have him here. I'm going to have him here. But sadly, the first race of the day, Harvey went out, just overcorrected a little bit, coming onto the pit straight, onto the start-finish straight. Clipped the grass, smashed into the wall about 100 miles an hour. Everybody's watching on the start finish line, but he was fine. The car's not so good, so that was my race weekend over. But there was plenty to see and plenty to watch. The standout for me was Tom Emerson. He's one of your boys at Thruxton. You know Tom.
Oh yes,
he was brilliant. It just shows the difference between a pro and us, because you had the likes of Fred Chiddicks and Charlie Lower, who have been super fast all year, but Tom eased the way, not by much, but every lap was a few tenths and consistently
sprint
as well.
Sprint races and shared car races. It was a mixture of races, were they all two driver races?
Yeah, so typically you'd have two drivers. A couple of guys did it on their own, but typically you have two drivers. So one would do the sprint 20-minute sprint race, then the other would do the other 20-minute sprint race, and in the afternoon or evening you do a 1 hour endurance race. And there was a joker lap as well.
How long's this been? Yeah, how long's this been happening for? Is it a new thing?
First year they've ever tried it, and I think virtually everybody said yes, we want to do it again. A few little challenges as you'd expect, but overall it was fantastic. But Tom Emerson was brilliant. Taylor Flanagan was absolutely on fire in the 310s. The Paddle Up boys, they did well. They had some problems with tyres. They didn't bring the right tyres. They're the only people on the tyres that you have on 270s. So they had a real struggle. But then very kindly, a couple of guys donated their old tyres, which are on nylon now. But so they had some brilliant results based on the tyres and stuff they had. And also I mentioned a couple of guys did it on their own. Tom McEwen and Matt Shepherd, they both did it on their own, the whole thing, and they were phenomenal, the pair of them as well. But thanks to me and my amazing timing on my iPhone, Paddle Up got the fastest pit stop of the weekend. How about that? Team Paddle Up, Mark and Joe. Because you get a 4 minute pit stop. You're not allowed to leave the pits. It's all on your transponder. You're not allowed to leave from the start of the pit line to the end of the pit line 4 minutes. Anything under that. So they were penalising people for going out 3 seconds before. One poor guy, Matt Shepherd, he went. Yeah, exactly. 3 seconds a lap is huge. But we managed to time it to perfection. We got the fastest pit stop, 4 minutes, 3.2 seconds. Yeah, baby. So we did win something for the fastest pit stop.
3.2 seconds too long.
I knew you'd say that. I knew you'd say that.
It could do?
Yes, that was the best, Tiff. Yes, I know.
Because we have that in historic, all GT racing in England. I've had that with all historic races I've done. We have a stopwatch on the steering wheel. Then you have that. So as you come in the pits, you press the watch. And as you go out the pits, you're waiting for your 4 minutes and your 3 minutes 58, 59, go.
Well, it is 2023, so we don't have stopwatches on steering wheels anymore. But what we do have are digital timers. Now, the problem with the digital timers were under the floodlights, a 0 looked like an 8, and there was so nobody realised it was going to look like that. And then the next day, the problem with the digital timers were it was too sunny on the digital timers. So perhaps next year, if it happens, everybody will invest in the old-fashioned stopwatch on the steering wheel.
Stuck on the steering wheel.
Yeah. So, but it was amazing. The people at Bushy Park were brilliant. Food was pretty average, but other than that, you can't fault it. Kalia, she was head of the media team.
What's the beer in Barbados? I forget.
Banks beer. We had 1 or 2 of those, but and Ron Mousey, he's one of the drivers, brilliant lad. He bought a massive case of beer for everybody. He's got a place here. How the other half live, hey? But he bought a massive container full of beer, all the ice, chilled for 2 days. So it was magnificent. A really good weekend. Hopefully, I'll be invited back next year. So and maybe you can come as well, because there's plenty of beer on tap.
Yes, please. I'll be there. Why wasn't I invited this year?
You were busy, remember? Because
well, the year's not over, though. The year's not over.
Patsy's
Formula
away.
One's finished.
Mrs. Needell is away, hence why Tiff, apologies about the audio. He's on his phone. He normally borrows the Mrs. iPad. So sorry about the audio this week, but thanks for joining as always. What's coming up next week, please, Tiff?
It's not over. Yes, Formula One's finished. MotoGP's finished. Supercars have finished. Everything's finished. Caterhams have finished. But no, the world of motorsport is still rich. Because this weekend, it's too exciting. There's an epic title fight for the Extreme E champions over at the Copa Grand Prix in Chile. So don't miss it.
There you go. Thanks for joining. See you next week. We'll have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we'll come back with we'll do a Formula One review next week. We'll do an end of term report next week for Formula One.
Perfect, with good audio. Cheers.
Cheers.